400,000 homes in Oklahoma use propane to heat their house with. And I'm disappointed that very little has been done that will benefit those 400,000 homeowners. Thousands of small businesses across the state are also in dire straits. I'd like to begin by saying, for me, this is not a Democrat versus Republican issue. This is an issue where our citizens are suffering, and I think that we can do something about it, at least at the state capitol on the second floor in the governor's office. The ball's really in her court right now. So far, the governor's office has issued some executive orders. In January, after one of her executive orders, prices shot up to over $5 a gallon across lots of parts of the state. Last Friday, she directed funds from LIHEAP and ECAP, which those funds help low-income families. But so many homeowners won't qualify for that. A family of four can only make about $25,000 a year. You have to make under $25,000 a year to qualify. So many homeowners will not get any help across our state. Our poultry and hog farms across the state are not getting any help. Our local companies, small businesses that deliver propane to these homeowners, they're not getting any help. A lot of them are operating in the red right now. There's countless families out there that make just barely above that threshold to qualify for that assistance. Yesterday we had a lady call just almost in tears. Her husband is in a rented hospital bed in the living room, and she's having to use her oven to keep the house warm. But those are the kind of calls that I'm getting, and that's why I've been so vocal about we need to do something to help these people.
And this is one of the crises that we have out in our area, and that is that lack of supply. And it's not about the local distributor, it's about production that's been manipulated. And this is the evidence that we have when we look at this. Now, the Representative Lockhart indicated, he's right, at this time we're limited in options. But if we let this go without taking a serious look at production and the control of production relative to the needs of our area in the state of Oklahoma, we are not doing our job as governing Oklahoma. For example, we need desperately to have an interim study planned for this to look at the production end and the distribution end. And that's what we're running into right now, and that is the manipulation of production. And I think this is one of the concerns. But also the concern is not only, as Representative Lockhart indicated, not only for the user, but those businesses out in the rural areas that are dependent on this form of energy and heat. Is very critical that we look at that.
In my district, I've been contacted by retailers. This is a crisis on several fronts. I've got a constituent that had an 800-gallon tank. To fill that 800-gallon tank, $4,000. $4,000 to fill an 800-gallon tank with propane. I've been contacted by constituents that operate propane businesses, and they have done all they can. They were distraught. About 10 days ago, they called. They said, we're going to have to start selling our propane at cost because our customers can't afford it. Before this crisis began, they were paying $8,000 to $10,000 for a load of propane. After the price spiked like it did, a load of propane was costing them $40,000. And it wasn't just, do I buy $40,000 or do I just hold off and don't have any? It's a real issue because they don't know what the future of the propane price is going to what's going to happen to that. So if they invest $40,000 in a load of propane and the price plummets, then they've got propane that may be worth $15,000 to $20,000. And so it's a real economic crisis for all those small businessmen across the state that are that have family-owned propane business. And this Representative Lockhart and Representative Cannaday are right. This is not about those individuals. This is about a production issue that was manipulated beginning back in January and in the first and second quarters of 2013. There was underproduction from the year before. Prices were manipulated. We went into the summer and fall with, I believe, 15% below 2012 reserves. We increased production, not we. These producers increased foreign exports by 50.8% intentionally. The two main storage places, there's one in Kansas and one in South Texas. Oklahoma storage has been depleted over the past several years with an idea that this propane will be moved to South Texas for export. So, this is not an accidental thing. Sure, it's cold. We knew it was going to get cold. Sure, it's bitter cold. It may be a little colder than we thought. It may be the crops in the fall may have been a little wetter and need more drying and more propane use, but to have 15% less reserves in the summer of 2013 to increase foreign exports by 50.8%. That's 200 and I've got the number two. I believe it's 282,000 barrels of propane a day going out of this country, while people in Oklahoma, people across the entire Midwest are at dangerous levels of propane. Availability is down. Cost is prohibitive. We've got poultry farmers, as Representative Lockhart mentioned. We've got swine farmers. They use propane for space, and they don't get paid with their production until that production is in a truck, gone and weighed, and the big corporations come in and pay them. And they don't have the money to buy the propane to keep those spaces where those animals are. It's a national security issue. It's an economic issue. And I call upon the Oklahoma Attorney General and call upon the Department of Justice to look into that. Fortunately, the Department of Justice has looked into it the last few days, and the price has actually softened as a result of DOJ looking into that. And hopefully they will explore that further because the numbers are there. If you look at StanfordLPGas.com, look at what the data record shows back in early 2013, and you'll see intentional underproduction. And look at what exports show through the fall. This isn't a situation where these export contracts were created in December 2013 and January 2014. This is a situation where they had these contracts. They knew what they were selling outside the country. So underproduction, over-export, and moving Oklahoma's storage. I mean, we had storage facilities for years and years here in Oklahoma, and those storage facilities have been moved out of the state intentionally. And that's where the problem lies, and those are the individuals that are responsible.
There may be issues with production and the way the market's been manipulated. Of course, I think for a lot of us right now, the overriding concern is, in fact, the 400,000 Oklahomans that are relying on this. When you think about what it would be like if we went to the gas station, when we left here and all of a sudden gas was $14 a gallon, we would be in panic mode in the state of Oklahoma. And that's the situation that these families are facing with the quadrupling and the price that they're facing right now to heat their homes and run their businesses. So investigations and all that aside, it's important that we look at something to do now to provide some relief. And the fact of the matter is, in the same way that the legislature tapped the rainy day fund last May for a crisis and more, we've got another crisis in the state of Oklahoma. And with over $500 million in the rainy day fund, this is the time for House and Senate Republican leadership in the appropriations committees to take a shell bill and get something in the pipeline right now that will provide funding for an emergency subsidy program to help these families. This is something that it's not out of the question that we could put something together in a couple of weeks that would start getting some subsidies to these people that are in crisis. So that's I know I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of the entire Democrat caucus, but personally, that's the type of thing that I'd like to see happen, and I'd like to see the majority caucus here in the House and Senate take a true leadership role in this area.
We have a resolution that we'll be offering that will ask for money from the Rainy Day Fund to bring some relief to the 400,000 families that are suffering because of the high price of propane. Over the last couple of days, it's trended down a little bit. Prices have softened, but it did that last week and then they went back up. So we're not guaranteed that we're coming out of the woodwork. And so I think we do need to start the process of bringing those funds from the Rainy Day Fund up. One thing I'd like to point out, those Rainy Day funds were paid in by Oklahoma's taxpayers. They were paid in by these 400,000 families, and it's time for them to get some of their tax money back and help them. We shouldn't have to be choosing between food and fuel and medicine and whether or not your house is warm.